You saw the title, I made the video, let's do this. I'm gonna attempt to beat Crosscode, but make the game harder than a League of Legends player who just got their main buffed. The modifiers we're running doubles the cooldowns on consumables, making them harder to use in combat, makes some enemies harder to fight by making them more difficult and aggressive, and some other stuff that probably doesn't matter, so we'll get into it later. So we wake up on our ship as our main character Leah, chat with Sergey for a bit, shoot some balls, slash some pillars, and now it's time to fight the first actual enemy. Oh, right. So this is the prepare to high modifier. This makes it so that any damage taken instantly kills me. This makes things just a little bit more difficult. So, knowing this, let's go for a round 2. This fight is fairly simple. The turret only has 2 attacks, that simple fast projectile can easily be dodged, and the swarm of homing projectiles you either make fly it into the walls by dodging like this, or you can use the turret to block it. Eventually it gains a shield, but we only need to wait for it to use the homing projectile attack, and then we can attack it for free. But before we can defeat Turret Mark 1, we are rudely interrupted by a blue man that summons a giant enemy crab. The giant crab also only has 2 attacks. It will slam down to send out shockwaves that follow Lee until it gets bored and starts hopping around uselessly until it reveals its giant glowing weak point with arrows pointed straight at it. Each phase just adds another slam or jump, not really changing too much of anything. It's at this point that I would like to point out a very useful technique we'll be using a lot this run. Leah's final spin attack at the end of her combo has a delay. We can cancel this delay with a dash that can immediately be attacked out of to string together combos faster than we normally can for higher damage. We will be using this a lot this run, pretty much constantly for most fights. And with that, the crab has been slain and it is time to get off this ship. The blue man creates a bunch of enemies around the ships, but everyone else is way more worried than they should be about, and then we take a teleporter off the ship and everyone explodes. Skipping to the boss of the tutorial dungeon, we are using rookie gear since it's all we can use. The boss of this dungeon is Rhombus Turret Mark II, who once again only has 2 attacks. Dodge the projectile bursts and fire back projectiles in response. You can shoot the levers on the sides if you want to make these pillars pop up for cover and free damage while it has to turn to shoot them. For phase 2, you can no longer melee the turret and it fires bursts of 3 projectiles instead of 2. This changes nothing. Well, now we see its second attack, a sweeping beam that we have to use pillars to block. Nothing special, you should already know how to use the pillars by now. And now that we are in phase 3, it gets a shield to make it weaker? Shoot around it for a break state and free damage. And with that, the Rhombus Turret Mark II has been defeated. Now that we are out of the dungeon, we meet up with Emily, who commits the crime of being French. She immediately repents, however, by defending Leah from a random guy harassing us for having a lower level than we should. Wait, pause again. We are level 1. Everyone else is level 2. This is due to Disable EXP, which disables all experience gain as the name entails. This is an RPG. Let me reiterate. Leveling up gives base stats that determine your damage. Here are the level 1 base stats. Here are the level 76 base stats. Yeah. Also, we cannot gain circuit points. What are circuit points? Well, they're what you need to unlock perks and combat arts in the circuit boards. Perks like plus damage and plus focus are forever locked away, and combat arts are things like this. So naturally, this makes things slightly more difficult, but we must persist anyway. Persist, that is, with the addition of the other run-defining modifier, at least, disable credits. This also does as the name implies and makes it so that we cannot gain any of the valuable currency needed to purchase things like better gear or consumables. You know, useful things. And while you might think that one could simply use trading items for gear instead, trades require credits. So this locks all gear options into items that can only be obtained through either quests or chests, as well as limiting the total amount of consumables that are obtainable, period. This, as with all of our previous other modifiers, makes things slightly more difficult. But with all of that nonsense out of the way, what is the plan? We've beaten the tutorial and we can now explore Ricky Harbor and Autumn's Rise, and before going to the area past that, there are two bosses I want to defeat, Hillcat Bandleader and the Blue Hedgehog. First up is Hillcat Bandleader. The equipment we will be using is a Daikin that can be found in a Pathway 5 chest, and a Battered Fist can be obtained by doing a few short quests and shooting some turrets. And now we get into the fight that had my mic on. Before I eat a spicy bun to increase my attack by 10% and then hop into the pit. The Bandleader starts the fight with two other Hillcats in the arena. The general strategy for the fight will be to clear out any other Hillcats first, since the rocks tend to blend in with the background when you're not looking. By going in a circular motion, you should be able to dodge most of the attacks fairly easily. Just fire some balls and go for breaks when they glow red. The Bandleader's rocks have shrapnel, but just keep moving around the edges to dodge them. Before you can break it, however, it will throw a spread of 3 rocks instead. Watch out though, because after the break state it will always go for an uppercut that throws out a kinda tricky to dodge projectile. Use the pillars to dodge the attack easiest, I found. The patterns don't change much going into phase 2, it just gains the ability to summon allies. Luckily for me, it just didn't do that this time. And that was Hillcat Bandleader. Now we can move on to the Blue Hedgehog. For this fight, I'll be using the Daikin once again, and the Swift Spike obtained from the Hillcat bandleader we just killed. I will also be throwing in an Assault Vest that can be obtained from a chest in Pathway 6. This item increases the time it takes to aim at an enemy, but gives 25% Assault, which shoots projectiles when I melee for 25% of my melee damage, effectively giving a damage multiplier. And with my gear set, as it is, time to fight the Hedgehog. Minding my failure, pressing the mute button once again, Blue Hedgehog requires clearing out the entirety of this map. So before each attempt I have to clear the army of Hedgehogs. Perfect guard the spin attack to set up break states. After aggroing all of them, switch to rushing down stragglers while throwing balls at the main group. Rinse and repeat until they're all dead. The chest spawns down below and it's time for the real fight. In phase 1 he will alternate between a jump attack and a double spin attack. I like to use the first dash as a guide on when to parry the second. In phase 2 his moves become a bit trickier to deal with. By staying at range you can fire balls for free. He will alternate between a fake out dash that ends in a jump and a regular dash that can be parried. I decided to not go for the parry, and instead you can just play it safe at range, slowly whittle him down. And with that, Blue Hedgehog has been defeated. Now that those two have been defeated, it's time to move on. What? So this green guy still isn't over me cheating to handicap myself severely for some reason. So I guess we just have to beat him. Same gear as last time, let's do this. This is the first PvP duel of the game, and in these they're the first to win 5 rounds, with each round Apollo busting out more moves than the last. We handily lose the first 2 as Apollo and Sergey start freaking out, but it's fine because I haven't fought Apollo in a while. Dodge his balls and wait for him to glow red after using his melee string to go in and combo him back. Now that we're in round 2, Apollo starts using his basic arts that we don't have. The 2 arts Apollo mainly uses here is damaging spin art that we can just dodge away from like his melee attacks, and he sometimes uses to extend his melee combo, and his dash art. The dash art isn't that big of a problem, just dash perpendicular. Alright, last round, 4-4. Not even close. Apollo says we haven't unlocked the true potential of our class and leaves. Well, he's not wrong, but we'll never unlock the true potential of our class. So, I guess it's true. Anyway, we finished talking with the best French girl. And then we go to sleep.